Hey guys, welcome to Make You Remarkable, a brand new podcast brought to you by Oconee State Bank. I'm your host, JT Tomlin, and on this podcast, we're going to be talking all things leadership, entrepreneurship, and personal development. Our goal is to ignite purpose and inspire passion in our listeners by asking them the question, how will you make you remarkable? We'll be interviewing local legends, business owners, and leaders within our communities and asking them about their road to success. Like, what kind of steps did they take to get where they are now? What does it mean to be a leader? And how can I lead my team? As well as what kind of mark they've made and what kind of mark they hope to leave in the future. This is going to be an amazing podcast, and we cannot wait for you to listen to it. So make sure you subscribe on your favorite podcasting app and follow us on social media at Oconee State Bank for more information. I'm your host, JT Tomlin, and I'm joined with my co-host, Neil Stevens. And today we are both joined with Sachin Patel. Sachin is the co-owner of SP2 Hospitality, as well as New Creation Soda Works. SP2 is a restaurant business, correct? Or a hospitality business that owns restaurants, right?
That is correct. We are hospitality driven, mainly restaurants, but some specifics, but yeah, you
awesome.
Can say that.
Well, tell us a little bit more about your story and tell us about how you got into that business.
The restaurant business.
The restaurant,
wow.
all of them.
I mean, how far back do we need to go, right? It was, I think it was 2007 or 2008, but we thought we would do a small little coffee shop slash little, boutique little dessert bar. I don't know how everyone's familiar with there used to be a place here called the Flamingo Room on Baxter Street in Athens. So we went on a expedition to look at places like that and decided on an idea, and we just went for it, signed a lease, and opened a craft beer slash coffee slash panini slash dessert bar.
This feels very Athens.
We might have been a little ahead of the curve, It was definitely a very trying time. I mean, everyone has this dream of opening a restaurant. I don't know why. Mm-hmm. Sometimes I wonder, but you learn.
I've never had that dream.
Really?
I've never had that.
You gotta live your Hallmark dream. It's like you're gonna meet someone across the restaurant, and there you go.
I love going to restaurants a lot.
He's very smart because. It's a lot of work. But anyway, so we learned. We dragged our knuckles a lot, and it was 5 years of really trying times. But then came along a really good friend. At that time, we were in the retail liquor, beer, wine business, and I was well acquainted with a guy by the name of Scott Parrish. And actually, it's John Scott Parrish is his full name. But Scott said, hey, we should do something there. And he just had this grandiose vision of opening a restaurant where people can gather, and it was in 5 Points. It's a very up and coming. It's a nice neighborhood. There's a lot of professors and a lot of professionals there. So we said okay, and I said, well, one stipulation: there should be a wood-fired oven. Let's separate ourselves. Let's make it 100% wood-fired, no gas. And so we built a wood-fired oven. Found a guy to build us a brick at a time oven inside on site, and we went for it, and where that journey took us.
The rest is history.
The rest is history. Yeah. So when we did it, again, he had a clue. He actually, I think Scott told me, I think at the age of 10, he wrote a paper on owning his own restaurant.
Wow.
Really?
So that was a very that was a checkmark moment. That was like, okay, this is not just his dream, but his passion. And he went to school for hospitality. So I said, let's do this. So I had to go find an old Ford truck to haul the firewood.
I think about that, the word you use, passion, and I think that's really what it takes. And jokingly said I've never had that dream, but I tell you, I am thankful for people like you guys who do have that dream and who have the passion and who strive to do it well, because so many, they don't do it well. But when it comes to food, I love food. And there's, I was told by somebody one time, there's about 5 steps in, eating or whatnot for your meal. And I only enjoy one of those steps. And that's the actual eating of the food. But, the preparation, the cooking, the cleanup, all that, not for me. But I love great restaurants. And I've been to some of your restaurants, and they're awesome. You do a good job. But I think you're right. So talk about the passion. How do you discover that passion?
Boy, that's a loaded question. I mean, but you gotta have the go get it attitude. There's no quitting, right? And it's especially in this day and age, that's a very gray line because taking care of yourself and then the sacrifices you make for that are also, that's difficult, especially, if you have a family. And a restaurant requires a lot of you, which, count my blessings. I mean, like, Scott is a fantastic day-to-day operations person. But he also knows, like, when to delegate and how to do all that. But, going back to that passion, to keep it, you have to almost get up every morning and just kind of, who was it, Rosie the Riveter? Like, she was when they did the whole campaign in the 40s or 50s, I don't remember, or 20s, I don't even know. But you just got to roll up your sleeve and just get after it, and can't be afraid of taking on a challenge. A
lot of grit,
and then also at the same time, my dad used to always say, you also got to have a lot of luck on your side. Because even if you're fantastic at something, doesn't necessarily equivocate into succeeding at it. Because sometimes you have to have being there, the right place at the right time. The Pine was one of those moments that Scott unveiled to me. He goes, "Hey, what this place needs? It needs a restaurant. We need to be, and this is how we can do it. We need a gathering place for people to get together." And that was definitely in my passion, but I didn't have that idea in my head when I first did. It was called Aromas, by the way. Just like I didn't have an idea of how to execute that appropriately. And so that was the luck that I was talking about, and so he ignited another flame in me, and, he was all passionate about it, and I became more passionate about it. And then, he took his hospitality knowledge and my beverage side that I'd done since I was 12 years old, and we applied those two together. And so that was really, because kind of like that came together as a force, and that was that insane passion, I guess you can call it. I don't know, but yeah, how do you find it? You just roll up your sleeves, and you just, you dare to fail miserably.
I like that.
But you know that if you come out of that other side, then you've achieved something great that possibly you would have never done if you did not fail.
So I think about your success, and you've been a very successful entrepreneur. You've done it time and time again, and I'm a student of leadership, and so I'm a firm believer that no great organization, regardless if it's a nonprofit, it could be a multi-billion-dollar company, it could be a small restaurant, whatever it is, anything that's successful is built on great leadership. So talk a little bit about that from your perspective. What have you done as a leader? What are some of the principles that you could pass on to the listeners that you feel you've done successfully? Because, typically businesses fail many times because of really poor leadership. So obviously you've been very successful. So talk about that a little bit.
Well, I mean, thanks. Look, the success part is not, you are nothing without a team, right? And so you're talking about this leadership. Here's a little secret that I kind of hold near and dear to myself but I tell them all every day, or try to remind them that, look, you committed to something, whether it's, being in the hospitality side, serving, making food or making a drink or taking this parcel from A to B or whatever that may be. And so it boils down to the attitude. And so you almost have to have, the receiving party doesn't care about your, I hate to, misery, or you don't want to commiserate with that person, because they're not your significant other. I mean, sure, with your wife or your, significant other, you can share those and build and get stronger and get clarity in your mind. But while you're doing your task or while you're doing your work, you have to let all that go, and you have to put on this attitude of like sunshine, and because if you look for sunshine, you find it. If you're looking for a rainy day, you're going to find it. And so if you put on that attitude of sunshine, no matter what odds are against you, it doesn't matter almost. It's almost like an invisible force field. It's like you're protected. And I might be talking out of space here, but it's like I use that almost as a superpower. I use it as a cloak. And so I tell, the people that work for us, that work with us, and myself, of course, that, hey, it's okay. Like, you got up in the morning, you got up today. Like, you saw the sunlight or whatever. You saw the day, the light from a star 8 minutes away traveled by at the speed of light and hit your eyes, and the photon exchanged into energy and went into your brain. I mean, are you kidding me? You got to see it and breathe it and feel it and touch it. And so then just make use of that. Like, just make it the best. And so that's a little secret that I hold. So it might come across as artificial, but it's not, because I strongly believe in that. Yeah, sure, everyone has bad days, but to lead to go into battle, if you go in with the right attitude, I promise you're going to come out with a lot less casualties, and you're going to come out a lot more ahead than you thought you would be. So that's what I try to portray. I mean, amongst other things, but that's like the first setup, right, in your brain.
My question for you on that topic is, how do you encourage and even consistently get that workspace?
That has become more and more challenging, of course, especially in the current environment with the labor force being so tight. But the tighter it is, the better the cream is, right? So the less milk there is, the better the cream there is on top. So you constantly try to search that. And I'm not saying that there are people that are not. There are a lot of people who don't have the ability to unlock their potential. So you almost have to act like a key to that lock and say, I know your weakness is here, but your amazing strength here. Why don't we use that strength and let go of the weakness? So that's hard to do in the retail environment, because a lot of times you have to be able to multitask or, use all kinds of skills. But that's okay, because if you can get the strengths from them, you'll find sometimes that those strengths are far superior than yours, because they're focused, they're honed in. Sometimes multitasking is a bad thing because you're not able to focus 100% on it. So if somebody's great at, task X or thing, whatever that is, it's okay. You can let go of Y and Z, because then someone else can pick that up and they can probably do it better. And so to find that, that's definitely almost like a curating process. Sometimes I think about, like, we're like a museum. We're curating little pieces of art, and then like those pieces of art are then curating further. So you just, again, it's in that positive attitude, the finding the weaknesses and finding the strengths and dividing those, and then just running with that.
You talk about being in the hospitality business and being hospitable, which means you are you're making an impact in the lives of people, right? I mean, truly, you're making a mark in the lives of others. And so, talk about how that looks in your business. How do you impact lives, not just maybe while they're there having a meal, but I mean, in a way that maybe leaves a legacy?
So this is a small. It's like a almost like a small point of contention. I always bring it up to Scott to discuss, and Scott's my partner, right, in SP2, and we always talk about the personal touch versus the automation, or versus the the self-service and but we are providing an experience like at that very moment. And as a customer, you coming into a place because of first its environment, how it makes you feel. So that hospitality, the Scott Parrish rule number 1, we are in the hospitality business. Our job is to be hospitable. If you can't do that, then you shouldn't be in the hospitality business. So it's like you're providing an experience of, and you don't know what that person, again, is going through, right? There could be some loss. There could be celebrating something. There could be just a spontaneous dinner, a date, family. So we are trying to provide the utmost level of attention to that person, because that's what they came for. They made the decision to step into your door. You didn't go out there and wrangle them in. So as long as we can do that effectively and to the guest satisfaction and above, then we win, and so does the guest. So the idea is to make both parties happy, and that's then other things kick in, right? So it's environment and how it's because it's an experience. It's an experiential moment. You're feeding them. They get to see the food first. They perhaps get to smell it first. And then they're eating it and satisfying and giving their body nourishment. So you try to think that through and say, look, we want you to come in and have a good time, or have the time that you thought you were going to have. But yeah, that's it. And that's that personal touch on the hospitality side that, it's hard. It's hard to execute because it's not me in front of every guest every day, right? So you have to portray that to somebody else too. But they understand that, and you operate accordingly. So it's again, it comes down to the wholeness of as soon as they step foot into your home, into your place of business, like you treat them with respect. You engage with them in such a way. So anyway, I mean, we can, going to a restaurant is like a whole different moment. You go to a place, it's just like, I'm always looking at all that stuff, but I don't think most people are not processing that, right? They just want to come in and have their meal and enjoy it, have a good time, and leave. So
how critical are you whenever you go to a restaurant that's not yours?
I look,
or even your own.
I mean, even in my kitchen at home, right? It's like, it's so bad. I mean, it's like, but again, at some point there's a human level. And we're not perfect. And so you can have all these expectations of like, provide your best foot forward and, be, experience the sunlight and be positive, all that. But you're not going to get that 100% of the time. I'm just asking for you to give us close to 100, give me the maximum that you can give, right? And so in another restaurant, that can happen as well equally to where the server or having a bad day or whatnot, or the food might not be right. But I feel like sometimes I'm more empathetic because I see the struggle. Now, if it's a repeated offense, then of course that's a whole other concept. That goes down that whole other trail of mismanagement, all that. But
I think it's recovery. I mean, I think about, we were talking about golf earlier, but I think the what separates the professional golfer from the amateur like me is they hit a bad shot occasionally, but they recover really, really well. And I think no one's perfect, right?
That's correct.
And we're always going to make mistakes. We're human beings and imperfect organizations, but I think it's the way you recover. My wife and I were recently down in Orlando at a Ritz-Carlton, and went to have dinner one night, dessert actually. It was later we wanted it because they had coconut cream pie, and I love coconut cream pie. and can't find it very often. So we went and
they
were advertising it, right? They were advertising it on their menu on the website. So we went, and the server came, and it said, "Oh, we stopped that about 2 months ago." And I said, "Oh, we came. It was on your website." So he says, so we looked at the other dessert menus, and it was cheesecake, I think, or something. So we split a cheesecake. The bill came, and he said, "Look, this is on the house because we did not have your coconut cream pie."
Wow.
Now, they charged me enough for the hotel room that I paid for that cheesecake about 20 times. But in all seriousness, they took the time to recognize that, hey, we did something, it was a screw up, but without even us asking, they made it right. And so it makes me talk about it. Otherwise, I'd be saying bad things about them, right? So it's a big deal. How you recover is a big deal.
On what you're saying there, I mean, how much more value are they gaining
Huge.
than the little, like, the small amount of money they would have received from the cheesecake versus you talking about it every time you can. It's a big, it's a huge thing for a business owner to understand that, yes, money is important, but if you understand the value of word of mouth, if you understand the value of someone with credibility like you do, Neil, him going around and saying, "Hey, this is a great place to go," you're going to quadruple the investment that you put in for that product.
Unquestionable. Yep.
It's that long-term versus short-term thinking.
Yes.
And so that was on the retail side in the beverage industry. That's another thing I learned, going above and beyond. And, that's what really I kind of cut my teeth with, knowing that, as long as you just go above and beyond, sorry, I don't mean not above and beyond. As long as you give your 100% of what you're capable of giving, then you've gone above and beyond, because how many other people are given 100%? And so from that is where that, take ownership of your flaw, take ownership of that weakness, that I was talking about, like, let go of the weakness. Okay, we messed that up, but let's take our strength and smother it with that. And so if you're willing to take maybe that painful pill and say, okay, and it would be painful, especially for an independent restaurant, you lose XYZ in revenue and you compound that. I mean, it's like,
it could be detrimental.
So you have to make those decisions at the margin, but you do that, and over the long term, the return is tenfold.
Well, this all goes back to my leadership, question earlier. And that is, whenever you have a server or someone who doesn't take the extra step to recover well, or they treat you in a way where it shows that they're just there to get a paycheck and they don't really care, I always say, don't get angry at that person. It's not really them. It's the leadership that's leading them, because there's an expectation. They're allowed to get away with, and it's the hiring thing. It's hiring the wrong person. So I always attribute everything back to leadership. And so that experience at the Ritz was because of their quality. We all know their quality, but it's the relentless desire to provide exceptional service, and their people know that all the way down the line.
So talking about leadership, I want to hear a little bit more about y'all's idea, like your vision, mission, values at SP2.
So, part of SP2's, again, that mantra number one is, we're in the hospitality business. We are here to be hospitable. It blankets the whole arena of, if we can't provide the best, then we shouldn't do it. And there are times that we have to cut the line, because I'm always like, yes, we can do that. Yes, we can do that. Yes, we can do that. So, but you can't do everything and be good at it, is what I've had to learn along the way all those years. And so the whole concept of applying that and saying, hey, give the best energy at it and make it happen. And again, you don't learn that overnight. There's no way to do that you learn that by failing. But you have to be able to look at the failure and analyze it instead of getting upset at it. You have to be able to say, hey, what went wrong? This went wrong. Well, let's not let that happen again. and what are the steps to prevent it. So the prevention, that's a whole nother, right? An ounce of prevention is just
pound the cure.
Yeah. And applying that principle to any business and anything you do. So like the beverage side, like the retail side, we were very fortunate that we built a strong customer base with understanding like, hey, we will make it happen for you. And there were times you can't make everybody happy. Some people just wake up on the wrong side of the bed that day, And so, but it's okay because they get another chance to wake up the next day.
Yeah.
Well, and so you constantly hammer away at that and move forward.
It's something that you said earlier, kind of going off of what you were just talking about, was the dare to fail miserably. It was such a really cool thing to hear because it's like what you were just saying with look at your failure and be able to analyze it. How do you encourage your team if there's a failure? Like, how do you help them kind of get back on track and then also kind of analyze that and move forward?
Again, tough in the current environment. I'm not going to lie. I can't candy coat it at all. But if you just empower them to fix their own problems, you don't necessarily point them out and critique. You have to empower the failure. You have to empower the success from being able to look at the failure. So the other thing is like, hey, what went wrong here? Or, where can I step in and what do you want me to, what can I help you? Is a big question that's like constantly looming in my head, or I'm like, I got that. Don't worry about that. Take it off your list. And so if you cut something off, and so that's where the teamwork comes in, and it's like, okay, we're burning up right now. It's okay. I'll run and get the water. I'm going to need someone to dump it on the fire. And so I guess that's the whole empowerment, and then building that team. Like, hey, this part no one wants to do. I know this is difficult for us to do. Let me tackle that, and I know you're good at that. Why don't you tackle that? And this way we can put out that fire.
Yeah. And one thing I want to kind of learn a little bit more about is like your journey to where you are now. So what kind of got you started in entrepreneurship? How long have you been an entrepreneur? Like, what's your story?
Wow.
Hard question.
When I was 12 years old, I came to this country, and my brother was here a year before. That was 1988. I came here in 89, and it was just me and my brother and his wife and his 2-year-old at that time. And my parents stayed back in Kenya. We came here and got involved in the bottle shop. And at the age of 12, I don't know if I'm allowed to say this on the podcast, but at the age of 12, I had a key to the liquor store.
Wow.
Well, because they were working day and night, Bush and Parul, Bush is my brother, and they were working open to close every day. And Sundays, you had to be forced to be closed. So that was like the only family day. But at the age of 12, I got that key, and he said, there's an ice machine back there. We need to start bagging our own ice. And so that's where I was like, okay. And I was 12 and like, this is terrible. This, the typical 12-year-old excuses. But I drive my bike up to the shop in the morning. That was because, the ice machine doesn't stop working. It's a machine. It just pumps out ice. Well, what happens when the ice maker gets full? It stops running. So I did it for one day. And then the next day, I didn't go. I didn't do it. And my brother's like, well, why is the ice maker full? And I was like, well, because I didn't come in to bag ice. He said, well, that's great. It's just sitting there idle. It's not working for you. And so I said, well, okay. So, of course, I had to get in there. And, at that point, it's getting hard and it's harder to bag it. And I was like, wow, this is the difference between fresh ice and anyway. So I had to learn, and I started riding my bike up every day, coming back, getting on the bus, getting ready, Finally, I convinced the bus driver to drop me off at the shop on the way to drop me off home after school ended. Because I was like, I have to go bag ice over there. And she's like, I can't drop you off there. It's like, yes, you can, because I'll get someone to vouch for me.
The bus driver's dropping
pulling in the
off
liquor store. The bus driver would make a U-turn in the liquor store, and I'd get dropped off in the parking lot. And I would go in and bag ice, so I wouldn't have to ride my bike up the hill to the shop.
Which is much nicer.
Much nicer. And then I'd just get a ride with one of the guys getting off, and they'd just drop me off at home, which was, it's close enough. We were living close by. But that cut out a step for me. So I learned about the whole concept of frozen water, right? It's like just frozen water that we can, I think the price was 79 cents for a 7-pound or 10. There's a 7-pound bag back then. And I learned by looking at the water bill that it only costs a penny a gallon, which is, okay, that's 8 pounds. Well, that's one bag of ice. The bag cost me a penny, and the twist tie cost, I think, 1/10 of a cent or so. I don't know. I can't remember. Something like that. So I'd buy the whole box of twist ties. It was like 300 or 500 twist ties in there, and buy bags, and started bagging ice. So that was it. That was the journey. That was the start. And then I just looked at everything. And then my brother would say, he's like, there's a reason why there's a buffalo on the nickel. And I was like, what do you mean? He goes, because there's a buffalo on the nickel. Take it off. Find a way to get the buffalo off the nickel. So yeah, that was it. I never looked back. I just found opportunity in things. I look at things, I see a gap, and I'm like, there's opportunity right there. And then you just decide to act on it or not, So, but it was kind of embedded early, which I'm lucky. I'm blessed. Like, that's something, if every kid should have an opportunity, right? Go out and get a summer gig mowing grass or whatever, because you learn the value.
Oh, yeah.
You learn the value, and what else I gained from that was a sense of freedom, and it empowered me to function better and more efficiently, and learn the loss and this and all that. So that was embedded early. But it only happens if you take if you have to get up in the morning, it's okay, I got to do this. I'm going to do this. So discipline.
And consistency.
Consistency, yes. Restaurant business, same thing, right? Yeah. That menu item has got to be the same thing every time. Because once if they like it, they're going to expect that the next time. And so hopefully did a good enough job to where they like it, and then you just provide that same thing again and again. And then there's a value associated with that. And that's the exchange of that value that you're providing. But yeah, consistency. I like that. Yeah, and the discipline, you got to have that.
So after your after like working at the liquor store, what got you to where you are now?
Again, that really was my training ground, because I was working with a crew of guys that they were just brutal to me, which was great, because they taught me a lot of things. They didn't allow me any slack. To this day, I respect them very much. Richie Burnett and his brother Mark, and there's another guy by the name of Brendan Anders. Anyway, those guys like shaped me, because they were older than me. They were in their 20s. I was only, pre-teen, teenager. But from that, all those lessons of learning all that, and then taking the drive to really take command and take over that business, was like, okay, I got to turn the ship. So that's when I started focusing on the industry and saying, oh, I need to expand on this, or I need to add like craft beer. There's a big boom for craft beer. We're the first guys to do that, and expand on the wine and get my sommelier certification, and start talking directly to the manufacturer of the product instead of just talking to the distributor, and understanding how it's made and really putting a value to that. And then, empowering the customer to make their decision, giving the information to the customer to make their decision of what we have. Not trying to sell it, but giving an option and making them understand, hey, if you don't like this, well, there's always that. If you don't like that, there's always this. So, and then from that, putting all my grit into that, and went to college, and I went to college on the hope and dream of becoming a doctor. But I realized when I was in college, like my sophomore year, it's like, wait, I'll be how old when? And I gotta
When I'll
borrow.
ever see
I gotta
money.
borrow how much money?
Mm.
Wait a minute, no. So I changed my focus, and I got my degree in I finished a degree in chemistry at the University of Michigan, and then I said, you know what, I'm gonna go to Georgia and get my economics degree, and it was like the if the shoe fits, wear it.
Mm.
It was just.
So who were you pulling for, Georgia or Michigan? A couple of years ago.
It was tough. It was a weird game. I was there for that. It was weird. It was.
Bowl.
I'd always said if Michigan and Georgia ever play each other, I have to go to the game. So yeah, I did. But I was split.
Yeah.
That was very sweet. That's right. That was in Miami.
Yeah.
Right. But yeah, anyway, so just taking that and just applying it across the board, and then looking at the opportunity, and then just working with the tools I had. And fortunately, in the beverage business, chemistry. Well, you're talking about interactions of science and fermentation was right in that alley. Distillation, and then economics was the principle of getting it sold. So it was like it just fit.
It all worked.
It just worked, and I didn't realize I liked economics until I went to college. I took an econ classes in high school, and it didn't interest me much because that's when you're teaching the the graphs and all the basics. But then when I was like, wow, this is just applied theory right here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So that's where we diversified on the beverage side. We diversified on other things, but for me, my main focus was how can I make this business successful, and how can I every day make it one step better. And so from that, we were able to grow. And of course, the insane support and help of the staff, right? You're nothing without your team. So I never thought about I had a team. I always thought I was just in the team. It's like I never really coached. I just kind of led by doing, and then they just did it, and we just did it together. So that was, I think, part of that fun too, because I was super driven, and it's like I got up every morning with a shot of espresso in me or something.
That's great.
I mean, that's a valuable thing to understand and also be able to share. Is that like you aren't anything without your team. It's like you're a brilliant mind, but you have to have that help to help you achieve the mission that you have. So I guess going forward, like what are some tips that you would have for entrepreneurs who are either just starting, maybe they're even in that really early stage where they haven't even graduated high school, like from your experience, but then also to like entrepreneurs who are just throughout multiple different ages. What would you say?
Again, it goes back to that discipline that you were talking about, and the consistency. But I think now in the current environment, I think because we have so much information at our disposal, so much, or tech is part of the reason we have that. I think using that to your advantage. So the information is limitless, right? I mean, you can read books and go to college online. And so use that tool set to unleash your creative side. And so that's, I feel like some of the most creative moments or the most decision-making forks in the road, I had to sit there. I mean, COVID was a prime example, I think, for a lot of people in the last couple of years, but is almost like when you're down to your last straw, it's like that last piece of cake is the sweetest, the last pie, because after that there's no more. And so when you experience that, it's like almost like, I guess when you're on your last breath, when you're failing, I guess you can say almost, right, is when your real creative side can really, because it's pushed, because it's the sweetest. And you're reminded of how, where you were and where possibly then you can envision of something else where you need to go. But I would definitely say that whole consistency and not giving up. And it's okay to give up too. If you're, sometimes you have to cut the bait and cast a new line, right? Because the fish is beating you. So it's okay. But knowing when that point is, not early in the game, right? putting everything you have in it and then knowing, okay, I can't do any better. I can't make this work, or I can't succeed at this, but I know I can succeed at this by adding this component. And that's where that information comes in and the twist of that comes in. And I hate to sound cliche, but some of the stuff that these old guys got, it's gold. I mean, it is gold. Don't take it for granted, because they've been drugged through the mud. They've seen it. They've felt it. They've tasted it. I mean, it's so kind of take a grain of, treat it like some salt on your eggs, like you got your eggs, add some of that salt, because it's good wisdom. But yeah, I have no idea. Gosh, who knows in 10, 15 years, Tony, whatever, right? How do you make it special, and how do you get out? That's up to you to decide, and using all the tools you got, and use the tools. Just if you got a hammer, use it. If you don't have a hammer, find a rock.
Well, we were talking earlier
Improvise
about like ChatGPT and AI, and like realizing, oh wow, these are really valuable assets that we need to be using, or at least understanding what they are. What kind of tips would you give to people, like you were just saying, about like adjusting to the current climate or the current business setting?
I think, adaptability is just a huge word. Like and in the last few years, somebody didn't understand that word. I mean, they're not around. So pivoting and adaptability. So, it's like the information is propagating at a faster pace than we are biologically, obviously, right, over the last many years. So that's a pill that we digested, actually, understanding in our retail business, in our beverage business, that, hey, the tail is wagging the dog. So, and we had gotten to a point of a critical mass to where, unless I received a revamp or additional huge shot in the arm, whether it was help with, on the labor side, or, changing our business model drastically, and perhaps taking a bit of a hit in the beginning, but taking that gamble, if we didn't take it, I could see ourselves declining. So that's when I had to find somebody else who had a vision that was greater than mine, and take that baby over, take over that teenager that we'd grown. It's ironic, right? Because we called it no fake IDs, no cry babies. A baby was a logo. So we turned into a teenager, and somebody else took it over, and they're going to now grow it further. So
and that's 5 Points Bottle Shop that you're talking about, right?
That's 5 Points Bottle Shop and Westside Bottle Shop. Yeah, we, that was, again, that was the baby that taught me everything, and I grew with it.
Did you say they're about to change? They're changing the logo? Or
no. What I'm saying is,
it's iconic.
Yeah, it was a metaphor to the fact that like the baby they start, and we grew it. It's still a baby in 5 Points, but if you notice, the West Side location was we called him Dr. Chronicle.
Is that the mustache?
That's correct. The mustache guy, Dr. Chronicle, with a beer cap monocle. He had a beer cap as a monocle. And he had the top hat.
Connected those shots.
That's correct. Yes, they are. Yep. And then but anyway, understanding that and cutting bait and letting go, and also being able to apply that information to your strength, and being the critical word here is just being able to adapt and evolve, because at some point your success will also force you to leave that or change it drastically again.
Well, it takes a willingness to do that. I think so many people are unwilling to adapt because I don't know if it's stubbornness. I don't know if it's this. I'm afraid of embracing something new. I'm afraid of change, whatever it may be. But those are the ones who are, left behind. Right? They're the world moves on, but and it involves risk, right? Being willing to adapt. I think a lot of people don't, because you have to be vulnerable and take a risk that creates some uncertainty. But I mean, it's a lot better than the alternative, because if you don't, the world, like you said, will pass you by.
Risk is definitely a huge component of that, and some people don't have the appetite for that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's sometimes it's easier to stand still, right? And they always say if you run fast, you don't get as wet in the rain, but I don't know if I believe, depending which direction the rain's coming from. But complacency is the thing, right? You don't want to become complacent.
Yes.
So I don't know. Stubbornness is tied to that, right? I think so. But being complacent and status quo and saying, okay, well, this is enough. Well, that's great. You're understanding your limitations, but understand that the world has no measure for that. So, then that's their 9 to 5, clock in, clock out.
But and that speaks to what you were saying earlier about having the passion and the grit. And what you're saying is that given 100% is to not settle for being mediocre. That there's no place for mediocrity. And I think as soon as there's a place that you settle for mediocrity, then that's the day that you that's the day complacency begins to set in, and then that's the day that you begin to lose. That doesn't mean celebrate successes and, stop and celebrate what you've accomplished or, what's happened, but always stay hungry, right? I mean, that's part of it. Is if you don't always stay hungry and strive for being the best and try to get better every day, no matter where you are, right? That mediocrity begins to set in and occur, and then complacency occurs, and then you're done before you know it. And sometimes it's hard to recover from that.
It's
it could be fatal.
To get out of bed and to roll out every morning with an energy is it takes a reprogramming of the brain. Horace Mann said, "Be afraid to die until you've achieved a victory for humanity." So that should keep you. That's like the drive. Like you just get up and you do something. So that's where you got to stamp out complacency. That's because that's like the word retire. You retire. Retire from what? Like, so I'm not tired.
Yeah.
Then why am I having to retire? If you do embrace that, any point, you have to figure out a way to get it out of you, because at that very moment is when you start declining.
Do you think when you're doing what you love, that drives you to be excellent and to not become complacent? If you do every day what you love to do. I mean, you talk about passion. Those two, I think, go hand in hand. Is that I'm fired up because I can tell what you do. You love what you do every day. You run to it, right?
I do. And again, not all days are equal, right?
Sure. There's always hard days.
There's lots of hard days. If you don't you don't appreciate the good ones, right? But that passion and that whole get after it attitude, it's like you have to change your surroundings. You have to change your mindset, your whatever that is, and understand that no one is going to come and write your dream for you. Nobody. No one cares about your dream. They might appreciate it once you show it to them, but you're going to have to start that yourself. And so that complacency is just going to destroy that dream every time, whatever that is, and to apply the energy. So, I mean, just applying your energy to something is going to even do better than what it was doing. So that's that passion, right? You got to love it. You have to feel it in you. You have to almost grow a tree of that inside of you.
Yeah.
Let the roots get in your legs, and you have to. So you got to love it. Then it's not a job.
Yeah.
And so I don't use the word. I hate the word job.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because it's not.
Job is something you're tasked
required
or
to do,
or you're being, like whipped at.
It's like it makes it not fun.
It's got a negative connotation.
Yeah.
This is my job.
It's like the second you say that, it's like, oh, I don't want to do it anymore.
Yeah. Like, this is my job. Well, this is my passion.
Yeah.
Or this is, this is what I'm doing right now. Even just take everything, all the emotion. This is what I'm doing. Whether it's cleaning the toilet or digging the ditch or drinking a beer or
wiping down tables.
Yeah, this is what I'm doing.
So what are some memories that you have? What are your favorite? What's some fun that y'all do at the different places, or what's your favorite thing about what you do? Especially favorite memories.
And so we've not talked about this, right? We talked about the employees or the people, your team, your all that. The most fun for me, and again, everybody's different, right? But is literally my voracious appetite to seek out other people and learning from them. So that is the most fun for me. Like just running into you, JT, like months back, right? And I was like, who is this guy? You know what? Like, all right, like, and you coming to me in the middle of the bank and like I'm like, hey, what's going on? I'm like, hey man, what's up? Like, it was very, it's and that's what I'm telling you, that day I left the bank and I was like, did that just happen? That just happened. Like,
that's what I strive for. That feeling of, I don't know if that was a real person or not.
No, really. And so, that for me is the part of that is really the passion, because, engaging with somebody, learning from them, what they know, and then doing something better. But the fun things you asked me, I mean, what are the fun things? I mean, gosh, down to where? I mean, because the restaurant business and, like the soda business, right? Like, that's fun. Like, Saturdays we have our own we have a tap room there. And, Paul, so I have a business partner there. His name's Paul Koistra. He's the one who started his passion, his dream. He started 5 years ago plus, I think. And I got involved with him a few years back. And now we've really, dug our heels in, and we're really getting aggressive and trying to, but he said, hey, we're going to have a tap room, and I think we should make smash burgers, and we should have floats. And there's all his ideas, right? Fantastic. And so last summer, every Saturday I'm there, I'm cutting the onions, getting ready, started cooking the smash burgers. And so, yeah, that's fun.
That happened?
Yeah.
Dang it.
We actually opened the tap room last Saturday. It's open all summer.
Okay, I'm ready.
Every Saturday we do, we offer smash burgers and floats.
I know where you're going to be tomorrow.
Oh, my gosh. Like, not even kidding.
I am cooking smash burgers tomorrow.
I did not know that.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but, like, I don't know. What is the fun things? It's like, at the Pine, we, Scott told me one day, he's like, hey, make a curry for a special.
Ooh.
So, we're not an Indian restaurant. We're a tapas, wine / champagne bar / oysters. And we have little tapas dishes. And so talked to our chef Scott DiBernardo, and I was like, I guess I'm making a curry. He's like, yeah. It's like, what do you need? I was like, I will start working on it. So anyway, try to keep it fresh. So do something every day that also, takes you out of the norm. So it reminds you of what, like, sometimes you might be stuck in some mundane task. You have to kind of throw a wrench at it. You might have to find the wrench.
Yeah.
And so sometimes ADHD is kind of a positive.
Oh, I love it.
It's
makes
great.
My job so much easier.
It's a positive because it forces you to adapt again, like retool, like, oh, I'm doing this for a little bit until I go back to this, or, but those are the good wrenches, right? Because you found that and you engaged in that wrench. You decided to, say, hey, we're going to go to Jack Daniel's and buy a barrel of whiskey and try to find that, or,
I think ADHD is a massive asset to any business owner. It's weird.
Yeah.
Because it in school or in like those environments, it's a real crutch.
Yeah.
But the second you're in an environment where you need to do multiple tasks or think so far out of the box that you're like, everyone around you thinks you're crazy, but it ends up working. It's a great asset.
The ADHD is like that. What is it? Is that creative? I think sometimes it's like the creative component and the willing to look at everything component allows you. It's like you're kind of like a squirrel.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Very much so.
But it is difficult for the people below, like, or not below, but with you, around you, because they're all constantly picking up some pieces because you're leaving them behind.
Yeah.
So you have to also devote energy to be like, hey, I got to complete that. I can't just leave that fire burning for someone else.
My roommates are not a huge fan of it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I put myself in the same category. My wife's the same way. She's like,
what's going on?
It's 11 o'clock. What are you doing?
Yeah.
Go to bed. I'm like, I'm sorry. Like, I got to finish this. Yeah. Oh, and I got to finish this too.
Yeah.
Oh, I got to do this. But
that's about right.
But you know what? It keeps it keeps it alive. It keeps it fresh. And it allows you to engage and see things that you wouldn't have normally seen.
Exactly.
Right? So look out the other window and you might see a different view of the street, like out of your office.
Yeah.
You got 2 windows for a reason.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Sachin, for joining us. I mean, honestly, it's been really insightful to hear just about your journey in entrepreneurship and all of the different lessons that you've learned. I think one of the favorite things that I wrote down was dare to fail miserably.
So that is JFK quote. JFK said that those who dare to fail miserably.
It's a great quote. And I actually don't think anyone said it to me before. So I probably should have found it.
I should have given credit to JFK.
I didn't know that was a JFK quote.
Yeah.
Heard a lot of JFK quotes, but that's a great one.
It's such a great quote just to think about that and be like, all right, success is great, but just value the fact that just put yourself out there, try.
People always talk about dare to dream.
But I have heard that one.
But dare to fail miserably.
like
That's part of the dare to dream, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, thank you so much for coming. And I mean, really, it was awesome.
Thank you guys. Seriously, and again, we talked about all the success and stuff, but look, again, you can't do it without a team. And you guys were a team that was in the background, right? It was OSB has been integral in my growth and my development, my family's, our business, everything. So thank you very much, because the opportunity that it provided was amazing, and is amazing still. Not was, is. But at the same time, it's also the customer base and the community that supported us, that still continues to support us. We talk about the team. You're nothing without a team, but you're really nothing without a customer.
Yeah, it's true.
So if you don't have someone to make use of what you do, or engage in it, or consume it, and it takes a village. And the community has been amazing. I can't be more thankful and feel more blessed and lucky. And I daily, I just run into people and it's just like, wow, like you are the reason I'm here. So, but that's part of the hospitality and all that, right? But, and again, it was the whole village, the customers, or people that we work with, my wife, my kids, you guys. Thanks for the opportunity.
Yeah.
Thank you, man.
Yeah.
Yep. Been good.
That's it. That's a wrap.